If I had to describe the romantic Otome genre into one phrase, it'd be the ultimate female fantasy. For years, I've adored the Otome genre. What is better than having a bunch of hot men wanting you? I don't know, man. If you ask me, I'd say this is absolute cinema. Oh, what's that? A hot guy with a creamy voice wants to lay with me? Who am I to say no? The popularity that the Otome genre has reached is astronomical. It's said that the Otome games market is worth over 5,000 million USD worldwide. In Japan, Otome games have become so popular in recent years that there's certain areas in their stores that are solely dedicated to media targeted at women. Games made by well-known firms like Konami, Idea Factory, and Voltage Inc. are played by millions of people worldwide. Otome games are made for the majority of devices, including mobile phones, the PlayStation, Nintendo, and more. There's a lot more to the Otome genre than being just a way to fantasize being with hot men. These games can be quite therapeutic for women, as they provide pleasure and emotional values that cannot be found anywhere else. It's easy for women to feel unhappy from real-life worries. You know, economic recessions, gender discrimination occurring in job markets, the usual. They can thus escape the patriarchy of the real world by playing Otome games, and boy is it big and successful. In addition to providing romantic escape, Otome games can provide emotional assistance. Through well-written stories and character development, these games are found to satisfy emotional needs by offering feelings of protection and fulfillment. By incorporating cutting-edge technologies such as sympathetic chatbots and giving aesthetically pleasing visuals, concept of happiness, by playing Otome games and instead develop their own self-directed, self-determined form of bliss. However, this form of entertainment seems too good to be true. I mean, yeah, we could argue that we can just view this genre as simply a way for women and young girls to escape reality, to just have fun. But I can't help but wonder if there is a negative implication to this genre. At a glance, this type of media seems to be helping women and girls escape societal pressures or standards, but it doesn't seem like they actually do. Sure, you can make decisions when playing these games, you can choose who to pursue, but what about how there's a silent way of implying that there's only certain options to choose from to get a happy ending? This brings us to the big question. Do Otome media reinforce patriarchal and hierarchical views onto female players, even while being seemingly empowering or comforting? Is it even intentional? Are these shows and games truly a way for women to escape societal pressures? Or does this genre remind us of them even more? That's what we're gonna find out. We'll analyze the genre using a specific franchise to aid in our analysis, and use Ahmed's happiness and killjoy frameworks to aid in our search. Let's rewind a bit. What even is Otome? Sure, I gave a more generic idea of what it was earlier, but we gotta get more specific. Otome media is a type of story, usually a game, anime, or manga. The goal is to build a romantic relationship with one of the several male love interests. A female protagonist serves as the main character in an Otome kind of media. The term Otome is a straight translation of maiden. This genre is heavily based as a story-based romance video game aimed at women and girls. The main goal of Otome games and anime is to give female players or viewers a narrative experience in which they can investigate romantic relationships with male characters, frequently in a romantic or fantasy kind of setting. The primary focus is on the growth of relationships and the possibility of romantic results with the available male love interests. Sarah Ahmed examines the ways in which women's happiness has traditionally been correlated with their adherence to social norms, namely those related to marriage, heteronormativity, and emotional labor. Ahmed introduces the idea of happy objects, where objects become imbued with affective value and how emotions stick to things, ideas, and social goods. This means that happiness is not just a feeling, rather a complex and social and cultural phenomenon. Pursuing happiness is a societal construct that upholds particular standards and ways of living. Defying these standards can result in being called unhappy. Happiness, rather this idea of it, is not a natural feeling or state, but a promise. A societal expectation to direct individuals to choose a certain path as a way of living. In this sense, Otome games can be viewed as a place where women defy these norms and create their own unique brand of happiness, unencumbered by patriarchal restrictions. According to Ahmed's argument in Killing Joy, women who fulfill social expectations by being good moms, wives, and caregivers have traditionally been rewarded with happiness. Women who defy these expectations are frequently called killjoys, since their actions append the status quo. Let's use an actual Otome franchise. Diabolik Lovers, for example, stars a human girl named Yui Komori. She is sent to a mansion where 6 male vampires live and finds out she is destined to be one of their bridal sacrifices. She also must submit toward whoever she chooses. This franchise depicts an essentially violent form of happiness in which love is contingent upon suffering and opposition is met with punishment. This is a crucial franchise to use throughout the video, as this game actually brought a major shift within the Otome genre in media. Most Otome media and games before Diabolik Lovers are known as more gentle, flowery depictions, light storylines, pastel colorings, and then this appeared. Look at it. Diabolik Lovers twisted that narrative, providing more dark romance plotlines. Basically, this franchise looked at the usual sunshine aura Otome games provided and was like, but what if it were more dangerous? It introduced basically what Otome games almost never provided: psychological manipulation, violence, possessiveness, and power imbalance as key romantic elements. It's just every girl's dream. Japanese romances targeted towards a female audience frequently portrays females' aspirations and desires coming true and propagates the notion that love triumphs overall. Stories about romance and a girl's maturation are particularly referred to as otometic in female-targeted romances. It follows that a girl's quest for true love is a common theme in Otome media, and like said earlier, the main objective for the woman playing. Diabolik Lovers is an interesting case study for analyzing Sarah Ahmed's Killing Joy, Feminism, and the History of Happiness, because it both reinforces and subverts the patriarchal construct of happiness. The game places the player in a situation where happiness is framed through suffering and submission, yet engaging with it can also be an act of resistance. I know what you're thinking. If Diabolik Lovers is this different compared to many other franchises out there, why use this one as our main study for the entire Otome genre? Well, it's not only popular for an Otome kind of franchise, it also influenced many more of the Otome media out there. Not many are as controversial as Diabolik Lovers. Not even close. Well, you know what? Actually, we can argue that. But it got many of us coming to a realization, developers and consumers alike. For the appeal isn't being adored, it's surviving the emotional roller coaster and falling for someone dangerous. Even if most well-known Otome games aren't inherently dark and sadistic, or they just aren't as blunt at how dark they really are, the elements of that vibe are still there. That is why Diabolik Lovers is the perfect example. If I'm being honest, also, I know way too much about Diabolik Lovers. It's really I think it's the Otome franchise that I know most about. So that may also be a minor reason why I'm also using it as the main study. Women are frequently under pressure to get over their feminist criticism and just be happy in patriarchal systems. Playing Otome games, on the other hand, might be viewed as a form of resistance, a decision to leave the oppressive structures of the real world and enter a realm where happiness is chosen for oneself rather than prescribed. Instead of serving as a passive haven, Otome games might serve as a platform for feminist world building. These partnerships defy prevailing cultural assumptions about what women should desire, despite the fact that they take place virtually. Ahmed criticizes the historical use of happiness as a tool to control women, but she also recognizes that feminists need to discover their own sources of joy outside of repressive systems. It is possible to view Otome games as a statement of agency, where women construct their own illusions of satisfaction and love rather than merely passive escapism. This supports Ahmed's contention that pursuing happiness on one's own terms and disregarding social norms are common ways for feminists to find satisfaction. Otome games serve as a kind of feminist resistance in this way. Gender performance in Otome games are done quite uniquely. regardless of the hegemonic view most men are put upon for female dedicated romances. Yes, there are ways in which the character's appearance disregard the hierarchical standard, and this is actually the case for many Otome franchises. Depending on the particular trends and individual manifestations, for example, men's fashion in Japan can be viewed as both associated with and possibly in opposition to hegemonic masculinity. However, when it comes to the Otome genre, every other aspect of these plot lines lead to the idea of acquiring masculine traits that are quite toxic and the female protagonist being more feminine. Oftentimes, the heroine exhibits hyperfemininity by being docile and emotionally accessible. As possessive, pained, protective, or occasionally grumpy, the male characters exhibit excessive manifestations of masculinity. Most female protagonists, without there being the choice of denying it in these franchises, acquire a performance of the ideal woman according to heteropatriarchal standards. It's not just a character trait, it's a script she must follow to be rewarded. She becomes a woman, not by nature, but by doing femininity again and again, smiling, forgiving, nurturing, etc. In The Promise of Happiness, Sarah Ahmed makes the case that society tells women that self-sacrifice, marriage, love, and being likable and emotionally accessible are the best ways to find happiness. The good woman is the one who is obedient, smiles, and doesn't complain. She prioritizes her connection with the love of her life. According to Ahmed, the heroine is viewed as a happy object, that is, as the thing that makes other people happy. In this case, particularly the other male characters. The price of happiness? Emotional labor. The statement, "Be this kind of woman and you'll be loved," supports Ahmed's contention that happiness is conditional. What if she rejects the script? She turns into the killjoy heroine. When Ahmed's feminist killjoy should be smiling, she doesn't. She causes discomfort to others by pointing out the issues.
さっきから父なしって私には小森優衣って名前がちゃんとあるんだから。
The heroine in Otome media may turn into a killjoy if she challenges her treatment. She quits the emotional labor. Almost as if the choices you make in these franchises are important. Oh wait. The choices you make when interacting with the Otome genre are what makes the Otome genre the Otome genre. Using Diabolik lovers is so incredibly important as it shows the amount of importance there is in the decisions you must make to advance in the game. This actually makes Otome games way more unique and intriguing compared to the anime and manga, since you can't really change or make any decisions made in the anime or manga since they're technically already made for you. The games in this case are more interactive that way. The choices made in the game determine your ending as the player. Ahmed contends that many of the options available to women are not genuinely liberated, but rather shaped by the very structures that limit them. Women are given the appearance of agency by Otome games, which let the player select romantic partners, plot lines, and resolutions. Yet these options frequently stay within the parameters of heteronormative romance and idealized partnerships. These games can serve as a killjoy substitute for happiness if they are viewed as a fantasy-like realm that defy the limitations of the real world. However, they might still function within the patriarchal system that Ahmed criticizes if they perpetuate the idea that romance is the only way to find happiness. Ahmed criticizes the manner that women's acquiescence to oppressive regimes is frequently rewarded with happiness. Yui, for example, is taken and made to live with 6 cruel vampire brothers who physically abuse, humiliate, and control her inside a highly coercive and harsh setting. The player can choose which vampire to romance in the game, but they are unable to completely reject the abusive dynamic. This creates the appearance of choice. Even in a case where the choices are seemingly good, the choices that are often presented actually want you to lose, because they may want you to submit into patriarchal standards by choosing a love interest, not to mention going with whatever bull they make you say or do.
何を作るか決めましたか？随分と安直なメニューを選ぶんですね。どうせ使用する粉も市販のミックス粉なんでしょう。手抜きじゃないですか。夜食にホットケーキを食べるんですか。なるほど。だからそんなに重たそうに見えるんですね。
When you decide on one of the following choices provided, they lead to certain endings. The good ending or the bad ending. These conclusions influence the romance's ultimate resolution and occasionally the destiny of the main character. For good endings, the protagonist and the love interest end up together. The story is resolved positively, often with love confessions, marriage, a happy future. For bad endings, poor decisions, miscommunications, or outside issues cause the romance to fail. The romantic interest could end tragically or reject the main character. The main character may meet an unhappy end, die, or be split off from the love interest. The player must actively choose to follow a specific man at pivotal moments by selecting specific actions or dialogue responses that will change the course of the love tale in order to build a romance and get a good ending. By using these techniques, the player gains the ability to direct her tale by acting in certain ways within the game world. There are structural limitations that occur in these games, and agency shapes structure in that way. While the player makes choices, they never truly escape the structure of male dominance, reinforcing the patriarchal expectation that women must adapt to suffering rather than reject it. Good endings. Similar to Ahmed's contention that happiness is a socially manufactured incentive to uphold restrictive gender roles, these endings imply that true happiness is only achievable if the female heroine follows the traditional route of romantic success. Bad endings frequently penalize the player for disobeying expectations, reflecting Ahmed's idea of the feminist killjoy, who subverts the conventional promise of happiness by disobeying patriarchal conventions. To break it down a little more, the good endings in Diabolik Lovers often show Yui remaining with the vampire and enduring his violence or controlling behavior. From Ahmed's lens, we could say that these endings reflect the ideological promise of happiness, the romantic submission, even if the relationship is toxic or violent. Yui is rewarded with love and thus happiness, but only if she adapts, endures, and conforms. This aligns with Ahmed's critique that certain forms of happiness are constructed through power. Yui's happy ending comes at the cost of her autonomy. In many bad endings, Yui dies, suffers, or becomes monstrous, but in some routes, she also resists or refuses the vampire's control. These outcomes reflect the killjoy's role, disrupting the fantasy of romantic happiness by highlighting what it actually costs. From Ahmed's view, Yui might be framed as the killjoy when she refuses the role society and the vampire expects her to play. The game then punishes her, through a bad ending, for disrupting the heteronormative fantasy. In some Otome games, the main character isn't passive, even if they are frequently put in situations where they must handle difficult social dynamics or relationships. They are capable of self-expression, goal setting, and frequently defying conventional gender norms and expectations. The vampire's own violence is romanticized and justified under the umbrella term of tragic love or deep passion. Again, echoing Ahmed's idea that violence can be rewritten as love when it fits the happiness script. Of course, there's also a few Otome media, specifically in the anime, where the main protagonist rejects the idea of choosing a male love interest altogether. In summary, Otome games create a sense of agency for women by providing them with choices that impact the narrative and character development, thus giving them control over their romantic and emotional journey. However, when viewed through this lens of happiness and killjoy, these games can also be seen as challenging conventional expectations of female happiness and the notion that a woman's fulfillment must be linked to romance. In this way, Otome games can empower women by presenting them with multiple pathways to happiness, while also confronting societal norms that define women's roles and desires in restrictive ways. To answer the argument of whether or not the Otome genre influences societal pressures around gender norms to succeed, we would say yes, but there are still ways to escape it with these games nonetheless. Gendered scripts are frequently reinforced by Otome games, particularly early ones like Diabolik Lovers. Heroines who are submissive or passive, aggressive, emotionally distant, or domineering masculine leads. Romance presented as a prize for perseverance, emotional work, or deference. This in line with patriarchal norms, while encouraging women to stay committed to relationships despite potential harm and to find enjoyment in pleasing others, particularly males. Therefore, they may undoubtedly support patriarchal systems. According to Ahmed, happiness functions similarly to a moral compass. For years and years, we are taught that happiness can be found in marriage, love, or being a good daughter, wife, or girlfriend, and we're supposed to feel guilty if we stray from it. So what's good about that? Glad you asked. There's still agency within this genre. As mentioned, the player's choices are central to Otome games. Although the framework may encourage conformity, it also provides room for criticism or refusal, even if those choices have bad outcomes. Ahmed discusses how the killjoy's refusal to follow the supposed path upends the joyful narrative. Even if Otome anime and games penalize you for doing so, it nevertheless produces a moment of agency and resistance.
ダメダメそんなんじゃ。もっと僕の S 心を刺激するように、惨めったらしいところを見せてよ。 まあ、とりあえずおとなしくしなよ。これ以上ひどいことされたくないだろ。
Players become aware of how unsettling these relationships are because games like Diabolik lovers frequently romanticize vampires who actually harm, dominate, or dehumanize the heroine. When the player reaches critical distance, they may begin to wonder, what makes this seem romantic? Why does love come from suffering? Why is this structure linked to my happiness? Ahmed would refer to this as becoming the killjoy, not by completely rejecting the game, but by observing its parameters and experiencing unease rather than happiness. In Otome games, romantic relationships are controlled by the female player. In contrast to traditional media, where women are frequently subordinate to male protagonists, the female protagonist is the center of attention. The idea of Otome media being patriarchal is not much of a problem while women play this, especially because it doesn't mean that women themselves want to reinforce every single idea or plotline made in these media. However, we gotta keep in mind that this genre is also targeted towards a younger audience as well, which can be quite concerning. That's why the reinforcing of societal and patriarchal structures can be problematic. The younger female viewer's preference for the Otome genre isn't necessarily a bad thing. The way that certain of the genre's prevalent themes mindlessly perpetuate harmful notions about gender, romance, and emotional labor, particularly for younger or new audience who may interpret them as aspirational or normal, might be worrisome. For example, there is a lot of romanticized abuse and violence in these games and anime. This normalizes destructive relationships as a component of real love, implying that enduring pain is a necessary component of gaining love. The risk lies not in the game itself, but rather in the way the messages are absorbed without any means of analysis or contemplation. This teaches young viewers to equate emotional support with love and self-worth, which can result in burnout, one-sided relationships, or remaining with toxic partners in real life. With no real-world repercussions, Otome can serve as a safe haven for experimenting with dark or idealized emotions. Overall, we discovered some really important takeaways here. Otome games matter because they center female experience and desire, and at the same time, they should be critiqued because they often present happiness as submission. We can enjoy the fantasy while still making space for more empowering and complex representations of love and femininity.